mother of bereavement, mother of the condemned. Your children have lived and died for the truth. May I tell the truth today in a way that honors them. I first set foot in this church 9 years ago today, on the dot, to preach from this pulpit for the first time on my birthday. I was a first semester seminarian, and so honored at the chance to be here that even though I got very sick the night before, I came and held myself up with the pulpit and collapsed after the service in that chair back there. I didn't know yet that I might call this place home one day. I didn't know yet that I would come to love you, that I would be ordained here some 6 years later. It was a sermon for the Trans Day of Remembrance, a plea for compassion and understanding. And to be welcomed into this space to name the grief and fear and hope and courage and loss of my people meant a great deal. It helped lead to everything that came after. In my first year as a minister, so many of my friends died that it became routine. I often say that while I was ordained in May, I entered that change in January when I presided over my first memorial service for a friend, a trans woman who died young. There were a few of us there, like you could lift away the numbers of the crowded city, and there, left beneath, was this little village, a small community who brought poetry and cornbread and tears, who sent a farmer with a pickup truck to come get me and sent me home with a plate of brisket. I think about that often, that we are a small community, just 1% or so of the population, so that when you lift away the 300 million in this country, you are left with 3 million, a small city's worth of trans people. In a metropolitan area like ours of 8 million, maybe 80,000, a town a bit bigger than the one I grew up in. My next funeral was the friend who fixed me that plate of brisket and cornbread to take home. There were 2 or 3 more that summer, and a mass shooting and a fire, and 2 or 3 more after that, and an election where we were targeted as a wedge issue, a threat to bring out the reactionary conservative vote. I learned to keep a clean set of black clerical vestments on the back of my bedroom door, in case I needed a quick change. Someone here asked if I was okay. I never seemed to come to church in nice dresses anymore. I was always in uniform. It has not been simpler in the years since, under a federal administration that has campaigned on the promise to eradicate trans people and has moved, it seems, monthly to declare us outside of the law and its protections, to erase us from public life, to encourage discrimination against us in fields of medicine and employment and housing, to encourage violence against us, which has increased steadily. The Heritage Foundation has made a platform of us. They openly wrote that they felt that the fight against feminism, LGBT rights, marriage equality, laws against discrimination in the workplace, that those fights were lost to them unless they came at them by first targeting trans people as a wedge. They ran focus groups and research that told them it was a safe bet that our neighbors would consider us disposable. They would rank ranks with us. They would allow us to be dragged off into the night, and so the coalition of justice could be weakened and the laws protecting all of us could be struck down with the use of a simple scapegoat. And my daily work in the last while has been the work of building hope in my community. Amidst all of this, of building power to save lives and help them thrive amidst a pandemic of despair. Daily, humiliated, called monsters and predators, denied homes, families, jobs, sustenance, material dignity. And daily, we find our ways toward lives we still want more of. I wrote that in the third person, but it wasn't right. I work alongside some of the bravest, most compassionate, most dedicated people I have ever known. People who have transformed their own pain and isolation into a commitment to caring for others, of bringing them together. People who have saved thousands of lives. Most people agree that the mission of saving lives is a noble one. But I find I often have to explain to my colleagues in the field of crisis support that unlike them, we find some people violently oppose our mission, try to shut us down, harass our volunteers, stalk our donors. We save lives they think should not be saved. We save lives they want gone. There was a story about us in a neo-Nazi newspaper saying, very simply, very starkly, we keep people alive that they want dead, and therefore we must be stopped. We treat as precious the people they have condemned from before birth as worthless. My vocation has been defined by grief. Because I took up this call to serve my community, and my community has been so often defined by grief. I first felt like a real minister while tending to that grief and sharing it. This is the 20th commemoration of the Trans Day of Remembrance. I came out 17 years ago when it was new, and we have grown up together. As a community, as a culture, we have adapted to the constant rhythm of loss. There is not a recovery period from grief, there is another death already. So it has become a part of how we understand caring for each other, how we understand our names, our relationships. For a generation now, part of that shared culture has been this Remembrance Day, a time when we gather to name our losses, to name the murdered dead, to recommit to working for a shorter list next year and the year after. And someday we hope no list at all. A world where grief no longer demands so much of us. There have been a lot of efforts to rebrand the Trans Day of Remembrance over the years. It's dour and self-serious. It's a downer. It's upsetting and triggering. And we should be celebrating, shouldn't we? We should emphasize our joy, our excellence, perhaps our normalcy. We should be upholding our leaders. We should pick something else to rally around than our trauma. It's hard to fundraise for our organizations around death. It's hard to recruit. So we try to rename it as a Trans Awareness Week. Or we call it a day of resistance, or resilience, or visibility, to make it a rally, to make it a party. We bring in politicians and celebrities and performance artists. We try to make it beautiful. We try to soften it. And I understand. I think we need more days for all of it. Often enough, we, I think, admirably try and take this day as a chance to uplift justice, to say, if you can feel these deaths, if you care, remember to fight for us. Remember to fight for the living. It cannot just be a day to re-inscribe trauma, to wallow, to terrorize ourselves with a danger that, truthfully, is not faced by much of the trans community. More than 90% of the murders reported in this country and worldwide are trans women of color, and in this country, nearly all Black and Latino. So it becomes a day for the rest of the community who are not poor, who are not sex workers, who are white, who are not women, to perform their remembrance of responsibility to the most vulnerable of our people. In 20 years, we have tried to find a way to deepen this day, to find the hope in it, and the courage, and the resolve to do better. But I think we also have neglected its grief. we deny that grief a place in our house. We do not feed it. We do not leave it a seat. We do not permit it room to breathe. And grief matters. Grief is worth giving its due time. Grief is a species of love. A love that reaches out for a hand it can no longer hold, that remembers what cannot be touched but must not be lost. When our love has passed into the past tense, we express that love by grieving. It is an insistence on maintaining relationship. Some historians mark the moment in the excavated record when hominids become human, become us, when there is evidence of ritual mourning. It is hard to prove directly the existence of feelings of love in prehistory. They tended not to be written in stone. The only physical evidence that love left across the millennia was in the ways our ancestors tried to express that the dead were missed. When we deny grief, we deny love. When we deny the expression of grief, we deny the expression of love. So who is allowed grief? Who is allowed to grieve? Who is permitted to show up at the funeral? Whose body is left in the street or the jail cell? Whose body is left intact and unmutilated? Who is allowed to identify the remains, claim them? Who goes unclaimed? Who is buried under their own name and not a name someone else has forced on them? Who gets the call in the middle of the night? Who is next of kin? Who do we see as worthy of mourning? Because these two are statements of who is worthy of love, and who we see as lovable and capable of loving, of who we are and are not in relationship with. In this, as in so many things, trans people are not alone. Grief is one of the fundamental ways we recognize each other as matter, and one of the fundamental ways we can deny each other's humanity and hold each other apart. When the police shoot an unarmed teenager and refuse to let his mother near the body as it lays dishonored for hours, it is not so different. When we deny bereavement leave or last goodbye to a same-sex spouse or a chosen brother, it is not so different. When we collect the bodies of the unhoused unceremoniously and render them finally anonymous at the crematorium, it is not so different. This is too often one of the classic abuses of the powerful, to blockade mourning. To disappear someone so family might never know what happened, to erase the footage, to underreport the deaths, to conceal the graves, as is happening in detention camps across America today, like the camp where Joa Medina Leon was killed, like the prison where they tried to hide that they had caused the death of Leilin Kuliat Bulago. I'm reminded often in these times of Antigone, that ancient tragedy of Sophocles. In the story, Antigone's brother is killed by the state and left in the field without honor. He's a criminal. To offer him proper mourning rituals is declared a crime, but she defies the law to perform rites of grief anyway and is arrested for it. It's considered an early classic on the question of who we owe our allegiance to, what we owe to each other, what laws we must break when deeper principles are at stake. In the story, Antigone chooses love, family, loyalty, over obedience to the law, the government, the ruler, to good citizenship. The law does not forgive her, and she does not bend. Sometimes grief is a sort of ossified anger, when that anger comes from love and when there is nowhere for that anger to move. We hold it in ourselves until time's strange alchemy can transform it into something quieter. but it is always about relationship. And the society we live in too often devalues relationship in favor of profit and power. Tries to wear away our human connections and our understanding of the way we need each other, of our common ground. Devaluing grief is part of that. We don't get time off work to be sick or be with our loved ones or move through the world like living things. We might get a day off for the funeral. We might get a month of parental leave. And then we are supposed to get back to productivity and put it all away. There's no time or space for it. For that part of our humanness. We began naming murdered trans people on this day in November because they were too often going unmourned, unremembered, treated as though they never mattered to anyone. News articles and obituaries used names and pronouns that would have horrified them in life. Ashamed families might keep the death from being publicized at all, and the body kept from view so no one could see the deceased as they truly were. They might have been denigrated in death, their remains desecrated, their story told in ways to suggest that they deserved to be killed, that what happened was their fault. And the vicious cowards that killed them often tried to obliterate their faces, their hands, their names, to make them unidentifiable, to erase them from memory, and not just at the beating of their hearts. They were denied the mourning that we offer to someone we consider like us, connected to us, meaningful to us. Their loved ones, partners, chosen family, hard-won networks of support and care were too often denied the chance to make choices about their funeral arrangements, their possessions, their memories. They were cut off. So the Trans Day of Remembrance has been about insisting that they were loved. It's about trying to put us back into relationship, into community with each other, saying these lives, these people were ours. They mattered to us. They were precious. They were our family. And they are worth missing, worth remembering. They were worth the time to say their names one night a year. Whether or not they got a funeral, whether or not they got a goodbye, they're worth the time. You cannot take this from us, is the declaration of the lights we light. You cannot take them from us, not finally, not truly, if we remember them. Sometimes these commemorations do go wrong, when the relationship is a fiction, when we claim to honor them but don't center that love in favor of our own small individual interests, our self-promotion or self-aggrandizement or attention instead of community, communal feeling of letting grief have its breathing room at its appointed time. But at its best, this commemoration is an exhortation to love each other in a way that binds us, the living, together, not just with the dead, but with each other. Their loved ones who miss them, we can also claim, can comfort and support. Those facing the challenges and violence they faced, we still have the chance to protect and nurture and strengthen. The community of those who say their names together, we can meet out in public on common ground and see how much we share. The bonds we make by insisting together on caring teach us solidarity and strength. Remind us to look out for each other, to know each other's faces and voices, to know when someone's missing, to know who to call. In mourning together, we love together. We brush up against a world where we might love each other before death and we might not be lost. We touch a world where we too might be loved. and someday missed. We remember that we are not alone. And maybe that's why the powerful try to deny all of us Antinomies the chance to grieve. Because it teaches us not just that we are not alone, but that we weren't alone before either. That we had each other, that maybe we were never alone. That maybe we never have to be again. That we are in this together, and that there are bonds stronger than the might of the oppressor, and loyalties deeper than those demanded by tyrants. Because we might hold hands and say, join us. You could matter to us too. We could matter to you. We can demand, we must demand an equality of loss. A justice in grief. A connection that leaves none of us behind. May we give that to each other. May our grief teach us about our love. May we increase until we are sufficient for what love demands of us. And may we remember everyone we lose, everyone taken from us together, always, in peace and in power, until those injustices are only memory. And our love outlives every cruelty.